Okay, I think it's great. Okay, so let me just share my screen. I'm going to share the whiteboard. Okay, just let me know once you can. If you can't see this whiteboard, just let me know. So what I'm showing on this whiteboard is a bunch of student IDs and their scores that they got for their exam. So it's a table on the left. But if you can't see it, please just give me a heads up. All right, let's come back to it. All right, so learning unit 3, you're going to cover two measures. All right, the two measures are pen. Right, so we've got learning unit 3. It's split into two parts. You have central measures, and I'll explain what they are in a second. And then you have dispersion measures. All right. Now, what are these two things that I'm talking about? Again, by now, you should be familiar with histograms. But if you aren't, what it basically is the diagram that shows how your data is distributed. Right? And let's see what I mean by that. So let's say, hypothetically, I have to draw a histogram for the data on the left. Okay, so what we're trying to measure here are the scores. Okay, and what we're trying to see is what volume falls in different score brackets. So let's start the score bracket with 50 to 60. Right, so first one goes 50 to 60. Right, so here, then 70, 80, etc. And you can see in the 50 to 60 bracket, if you look at the data, there's no one that scores below 60. The lowest mark is 65. So just so you know, I've arranged this data to be in ascending order. Okay, so you have the lowest score at the beginning, which is 65, and the next highest score is 68, all the way to the highest score of 92, right at the bottom. So just looking at the lowest score, which is 65, you can see there's nobody here. But in that 60 to 70 bucket, you can see there's one person there, 68. So the block or the bar would go up to 1 because there's only one person there. Right, and then you will do the same thing for each bracket. So the next bracket, you got 70 to 80, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. You have 9 people there. Right, so this bar would be about 9 in height. I'm not drawing to scale, but I'm just trying to give you an idea here what the histogram is about. So you would continue drawing this histogram in this manner, all right, until you've covered everyone in the class, right? So let's just say by some chance you've done this histogram for this data and you've got this histogram. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use a line. I'm going to change the color to show you what I mean by a distribution. So we'll start from the lowest one. I just try and join all the corners of the bars like that. And then it tapers off like that. Now, if you just ignore the bars and you just focus on the green line, then this is what I mean by distribution. Okay, it shows you how your data has been distributed. Now, the reason why I'm talking about the distribution is because central measure tells you where this distribution is centered, okay? And the dispersion measure tells you how spread out it is. So the central measure is kind of where most of your data is clumped up. So most of it, the highest part is around here. That means the highest volume is around here. So your central measure could be here, here, here. And dispersion means how much is it dispersed. It means how wide is this data. You could have a different class that wrote the same exam, but a lot of them scored very similar marks. So then your data would be your distribution would be very narrow like that. So you can see the graph on the right has a smaller dispersion than the graph on the left. So that's what I mean by dispersion and central measures. Now there's different ways of classifying where the data is located or centralized. So that means central measures, we cover 3 types of measurements: the mean, the mode, and the median. These are the 3 measures. So in today's session, I'm only going to focus on this. Next week, I'll cover dispersion measures. All right, so just so you have an idea what I mean by central measures, we're going to be talking about how we can describe where our data is centered, and we're going to discuss that today. All right, so central measures today. And why is that important? Well, just think about it, right? We do this in everyday life. If you had a class that wrote an exam, right, like what you see on the left, and if I wanted one number to summarize the performance of that class, most of us would think of just taking the average, and that average would represent the overall performance of the student. But what you're actually saying is where the data is centered. That's what you mean when you use the average. Average is just one type of central measure. We are going to cover the remaining 2, which is median and the mode. Right? And I'll discuss what they are in more detail now. All right. So if there's any questions, please just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna kick things off using the data on the left as an example. And this is a typical kind of example that you could get, in your exam, in your assignments. All right, so you've been presented with this data. We don't really care about the student IDs. These don't mean much to us. They're only an identifier, right? What we're really trying to measure is the scores, right? That's what we're interested in. So before I start, let me just go to the class and check who doesn't have their calculator with them now, and preferably the Casio stats calculator. If you don't have it with you now, but you do have it, please get it, because we're going to use that a lot in the session. So you can work with it, work along with me with your calculator. All right. So if you don't have it, please get it. Just give me a show of hands if you don't have it. So just to have an idea, but otherwise I'm just going to assume that everyone has that calculator. All right. Okay, we're going to use the Casio to work through this problem. All right. So what is important in this course is that you become familiar with symbols and what they mean. All right. So the average has a symbol, and the symbol for average is this. There are 2 symbols. One is this, mu, and the other symbol is x bar. Now the difference between the 2 of them is that this is the average for the population, okay? And this is the average for the sample, okay? Unless told otherwise, you can assume that we are dealing with the sample. It's very seldom we have the entire population of students, okay? We are generally working with a sample, right? So your calculator, when you're working with it, you're going to use x bar to get you the mean, right? Instead of mu. Okay, so very important that you understand that x bar represents the average for the sample, all right? So your x bar, that is your average. Now, if some of you are not familiar with how to work on average, it's pretty much just summing up all the numbers that you're interested in. In our case, the scores. You would add up all the scores and then divide by how many scores you have. Now, in our example, we have 21 students. Just so you know, the symbol for the number of data points or the number of students in this example, the symbol is n. And I'm giving you these symbols because your calculator is going to refer to them. So you need to understand what your calculator wants when it's up presenting symbols to you, all right? So if we want to work out the average, we just work out the total scores. So you'd add up all these scores, 65, all the way to the bottom, add up all these numbers, all the way to 92. You'll get a total of, so you know, 1668, if you add them all up, 1668. And you divide by how many students you have, which is 21. And this is your x bar. If you work this out, you get a value of 79.43. Right, that's your X bar. But now, because you're doing stats on a higher level, you are not going to do it the way I did it, taking out the total and dividing by that number. I just did it to kind of show you what it's all about. Your calculator does it a different way, and you're going to use the stats function today. So what you're going to do is with your calculator, okay, assume you should have it on now. If you don't, yeah, switch it on. And what you're going to do is you're going to press the mode button, right? Press mode, and that's on the top right next to your on button. So you press mode, and then you will see 3 options there. Amongst those options, you should see an option that says stats. In my calculator, that option is 2. So I would select 2. I would press 2 on my calculator, and then you get presented with a lot of options here. One of those options is this option here, 1 minus var. Right? You are going to choose this option here. If you have a 1 next to it, press that. Right? Press that, and then some of you will see this in your calculator. You'll see an X column. Some of you will also have a frequency column, but don't worry if you don't see the frequency column for now. It's just important that you have this X column. This is the important one. So if anyone's stuck, I'm just going to go back to the chat and check. And no one's stuck. All good. All right. Now what I want you to do with your calculator, you're going to follow with me. You are going to capture the data points here. All these data points that you have, you're going to capture it under the X column. So what you do is you should see the first row is already being highlighted, or it has your cursor there. All you need to do is type that number that you want to store first. And the first number that you have on the data points is 65. So you're going to type 65 and then press equals to. All right, press it and hit equals to, and then it would have stored that number. Then the next number you're going to store is 68. So then you're going to press 68 and hit equals to. And so on and so on. And I want you to capture all these numbers all the way to the last number, 92. So can you please just do that for me? I'll leave this board here for you to capture. So please capture those numbers. And once you're done, please just put your hand up in the chat. So at least I know you've finished. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time just to capture these numbers. I need you to capture them because I need you to get familiar with how to use the stats functions. And in order for you to do that, you need to capture data in it. Right, so capture all the numbers, 65, 68, 71, 72, all the way to 92. Okay, I'll give you, let's say about 2 minutes, and then I'll check chat. If you're stuck with anything, please just give me a shout. Excuse me while I'm having something to drink. Just remember, once you capture the numbers, just click on the hand raise button. At least you know you're done. So know that you've done that.
Mr. Daryl, after capturing the last number, which is 92, do I still press the equals to sign?
Okay, so once you press the equals to, so you should on your calculator you should see like a row 91, not row 91. On the left margin you'd see 21 there, and that 92 must be there after you hit the equals to. That's what you should have, and then you know you've captured everything. And if once you've done that, you can actually just press the AC button once you finish that. You can press AC after that. The data would not be deleted, and I'll show you why. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Let's check the chat. Okay, so 2 more. Just going to give you a little bit more time. Okay, Tasmia and Demi, are you still capturing, or okay, Demi, you finished? Tasmia? I'll come back to the board. But just let me know if anyone's stuck. Okay, so come back to the board. So everyone can see the numbers, you captured everything. Now, if everyone pressed AC, you would think that your data has been deleted because you're not seeing the table anymore, but you haven't. Okay, you won't, even if you switch your calculator off, the data will still be there. The only button you do not press is the mode button again. Don't press mode again, because if you press mode again, then your data gets deleted. So don't press that, right? Okay, now if you're still not sure that your data is not there, how you can check is simply, right, you press shift on your calculator, right? That's on the top left, shift, right? And then you're going to press the button 1. And why you're pressing the button 1 is because above that, it says stat. So you're interested in the stat function. So you press shift and 1. And then one of the options is data. You should see an option that says data. For me, it's option 2. Whatever that number is next to it, press it. So it's 2, press 2, and you will see your data is there again. All right, that's how you can check that your data is still there. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to come back. Now I'm going to show you how to actually get the mean just using the stat function. Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to make some space on the board here. Okay, so now we're going to get the average. We want to get the average using the stat function. So all of you can just reset your screens, press AC. All right, we'll start from fresh. So AC, press AC. Right, next, press shift. All right, then press the button 1 because you're looking for the stat function above it. Shift 1, and then you'll see one of the options is VAR. That means variables. Okay, option 4 in my calculator. Whatever the number is next to it, press that. Press option 4, and you would see the symbol that I mentioned earlier, which is here. You'll see the symbol here, X bar. That means you want the average. So whatever the number is next to it, if it's 2 that's next to it, press that. Okay, press 2, and then press equals 2, and you'll get your average. And your average should be this. If it's not this, then it just means you captured one of the numbers incorrectly. But most of you should have, if you captured all the numbers exactly as it is here, you should get a value like this, 79.43. Well, it'll probably be more decimals. I just rounded it up, but roughly 79.4. Okay. All right. So let me just check the chat. Good. Okay, everyone, you can drop in. You can lower your hands now. I think the exercise that I wanted is fine. Thank you. Okay. All right, you can all lower your hands. All right, so everyone got X bar. So that's how you can find the average using your calculator. All right, let's say I wanted to get the total of all these numbers. So remember earlier, I said the total is 1668. If you don't remember, just telling you now, I'll write it down. So the total, and the symbol for total is the sum. Sum of all the numbers is 1668. Now your calculator can do this for you. You don't have to press 65 plus 68 plus 71, etc. What you're going to do is you're going to call the symbol from your calculator. All right. So everyone, again, press AC, press AC. All right. Next, press shift, then press 1. And now this symbol that I'm looking for. This is a sum. This sigma here. This is a sum. So you would choose the option that says sum this time. In my calculator, it's option 3. Right? If you want the sum, you select that, and then you'll see the symbol here, and select that option. And if it's 2 that's next to it, press 2 and hit equals 2. And you should all get this total here. That's how you get the total. All right. Okay, so that's how you get the average, right? So, and that's how you get it using the stat function. Okay, so now we've covered the average. Let's talk about the median. Okay, now the difference between the average and the median. The average takes into account every single number here in your data. That means every number goes into the calculation because you have to use the total that feeds into the calculation of the average. All right. The median, however, is only interested in what the middle number is. So in other words, you have to rank the numbers from lowest to highest, like what I've done on the left. Just keep in mind, don't assume that in your exam and in your assignment, the numbers will be ordered for you, okay? That isn't necessarily the case. Sometimes, and quite often, the numbers are not ordered and you would have to order them, okay? And you get marked for that, of course, but just keep in mind the numbers won't be ordered. But to get the median, your numbers must be ordered from lowest to highest. All right, okay. Now I've ordered it from lowest to highest. The median, as I said, is the middle number. Now, how do I know what is the middle position? So let me just draw your attention away from these numbers here. Let me just give you a hypothetical set of numbers, right? Let's say you had a class of just 5 people, and the first student scored 55. The next student, highest number, was 61. Then it was 63. Okay. Then it was 70 and 72. Okay, so there's 5 students, student number 1, student number 2, student number 3, 4, and 5. Now I've ranked the numbers lowest to highest. From these 5 students, just looking at these 5 numbers, which is the middle number? Can you write that in the chat for me, just so I can see how everyone interprets this to kind of, I wouldn't say work out, but kind of pull through the middle number. Okay, just write it in the chat what do you think is the middle number here. Excellent. I think everyone says the same thing. That is correct. Well done. Now, with 5 numbers, it's pretty easy to see it. But if I had 50 numbers or 55 numbers, it might not be as easy to see it. But everyone kind of understands this intuition of the middle number. Now, we need to kind of formulate, or should I say formalize, how we actually determine which is the middle number. So how you do that is, to determine which is the middle number, you rank them like what I've done now, lowest to highest. Then we need to figure out what position is the middle number. Now, all of you already just picked up that the third number is the middle number. But how did you get 3, right? So visually, you can just see it. But in general, how you would find the middle number is you would, to get the position, you would say n plus 1 over 2. Now, what do I mean by n is the number of students, or the number of data points you have. You look here, there's your n, it's 21. So it's 21 plus 1 over 2, right? And that is, if you work that out, that is 11. So that means it would be the 11th number. So if I had to rank them here, there's 1, 2, etc. I think the 11th one is here. It's this number here, 79. This is the 11th number. In your case, for this example, let's work out what the position is. N in this case is 5 because you only got 5 students. So n is 5. If I work out n plus 1 over 2, it's 5 plus 1 over 2, which is 3. And that's how you got the third position. You see, you use this formula here. But I'm sure every one of you didn't actually do this calculation. You just saw it visually. But just keep it in the back of your mind. That's how you actually got the third position. You use this formula here. So in general, whatever amount of data points you have, and in our case, we got 21 students. If you wanted the position of the middle number, you use this formula here. In our case, for the students and the scores, n is 21. So 21 plus 1 is 22, divided by 2 is 11. So that's the position of the median. So that's the position. So it's the 11th student. And so the median is this number here, 79. That corresponds with the 11th student. Your median is 79. All right. Okay. Now the last central measure you're going to cover. So we've done the mean, okay, which is this. We've done the median. And the last one you're going to do is the mode. The mode is actually it's the easiest to work out. You don't have to rank your data from lowest to highest,
Sorry,
but it is.
sorry, Daryl, just to stop you there. Sorry for that. I have a question before you go further.
Sure.
How will you get what is it? The median if you have even numbers? Like for instance, you have 20 numbers, not 21, because yeah. How will you work it out?
Okay, good, very good question. Good question. So I'll do that example using the small data set here, but the principle is the same for the 21 students. So let's say instead of 5 students, I had 6 students. So there was a 6th student, and that score was 75. Okay, so now we have an even number of students. All right. So now to get the position for the median, we still follow this formula. This formula has not changed. We still apply the same formula. So our n in this case is going to be 6 because you got 6 students now. So n is 6 plus 1 over 2, and that now gives you 3.5. Now, 3.5, it's not easy to determine what 3.5 is because your positions are just discrete numbers. That means they're whole numbers. 3.5 is somewhere in between here. 3.5 in between 3 and 4. And what I mean by between, it's actually halfway because it's 0.5. 3.5 is halfway between these two. So what that means is there isn't a perfect middle number. The best you can do is take the third and the fourth, add them up and divide by 2. So your median in this example would be your third number, which is 63, plus 70, the fourth number, and divide by 2. And that would be your median. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, good question. All right. For the mode, the definition of the mode is just the most frequent number, the number that occurs the most amount of times. And if you look at this data set, okay, you look at the numbers that you see here, okay, what number occurs the most amount of times? If you had to look at all of it, every number occurs once, but there are there's this one number here, 79, which occurs 2 times. Everything else occurs once, but only the number 79 occurs 2 times. So that means your mode is 79 because that's the most frequent number. Okay, so in our case, in this example, your mode is 79. There can be a case where you can have more than one mode. Let's say hypothetically, there was another 92. Okay, whatever the student number is. Say there was another 92. So then your mode would be 2 values. So you would say your mode is 79 and 92. Because you can have more than one mode. You can even have 3 modes. All right, just keep that in mind. If there's a tie between the most frequent number, then you list both of them as being the mode, right? But in this example, there isn't a case like that. I'm just showing you just in case you are presented with that. In this case, only 79 is the most frequent number. So you've got these 3 measures, 3 central measures, right? There's a very useful property of these 3 measures. These 3 measures can tell you the shape of your distribution. And what do I mean by shape of your distribution? Well, let me get back to my drawing that I did at the beginning of this session. Let's share this out. Okay, so earlier I drew the histogram and I drew the green curve that shows you the shape of the distribution. Okay, so you can have a case where distribution, the shape of the curve is like a bell-shaped curve. It's like this. And just bear with me because I'm trying to freehand, but you'll get the idea. And I mean bell shape. Let's say the highest point is here, right? This is the highest point. If I had to draw a line straight down, vertical, like that, then what you see on the left, what you see here, looks identical to what you see on the right. Okay. Now this example is a symmetrical distribution. So this is symmetrical. But you can also have a case where instead of it being symmetrical, it can look like this. So you'll have your peak here on the left, but the right drags out like this. You can have the shape looking like that. So here, if I draw a vertical line going down, you can see the left does not look like the right. The right has a lot more area. Now this is a positively skewed distribution, or right skewed. It's the same thing. Okay, so it's skewed to the right, and this is the same thing as saying positively skewed. All right, and why is it positively skewed? Because think of this horizontal number, this horizontal axis. It's like your number line, and you start from negative values. It doesn't stop at 0. You got negative numbers here, and your numbers are increasing. So you have -3, 4, 5, and then 0, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So your numbers increase. So it means you can see that most of your volume is on the right, which means it's towards the positive side. Okay, so that's what we mean by positively skewed, or you can say skewed to the right. Okay. Doesn't necessarily mean that most of your numbers are positive. You can have your entire distribution of numbers only being negative, but the shape can look like this, and that would mean positively skewed. And in the exact same way, like what I've done above, you can have the opposite. You can have a negatively skewed distribution. So just think of a mirror image of that graph. You're just flipping it around. So it would look like this. So it would peak here, all right? Peak here, then it will drag out to the left. So this is a negative skewed distribution. Okay, now why I've drawn this and brought it to your attention is because using these three measures, you can determine what shape it is. Okay, and how you do that is what you need to know is that for a symmetrical distribution, all three of them are equal. All right, and that's what's happening here. If you look at all three, yeah, this is slightly more, but I mean, if you round it down, they're all equal to 79. So here, all of them are equal. So that means that your distribution of your student scores is symmetrical. Okay, so your student scores, all of them follows a symmetrical distribution. All right. If, however, the order was different, so say for instance, say your mean was the highest. If the mean was the highest, then that means it's a positively skewed distribution. Okay, so just remember that when your mean is the largest number, right, it is positively skewed. So let me just make some space here on the board. So for positively skewed distribution, your mean would be the highest. Your median is always in the middle. Your median always follows next. And then your mode is on the left. That would be for positively skewed distribution. But for a negatively skewed distribution, it's the other way around. Your mean is the lowest number. So your mean is here. Your median is next. And lastly is your mode. Your mode would be here. Your mode is always where the peak is. Okay, your mode always lies below where the peak is. It's not vitally important that you know exactly how far apart they are. The only thing that's important is that you understand the order of them to determine what shape it is. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You can tell the shape of the distribution by knowing the order of the mean, the median, and the mode. Okay, so that's the central measures for ungrouped data. So the example I just took you through now, this is for data when it's not grouped together. Okay, you've actually given the raw data, the numbers of each student. Now, what do I mean by grouped? Then let me just show you another example where you can get presented with the data, but you don't know the exact numbers. So let's look at this example here. What you're given here is this table on the left. Now, typically in an exam or an assignment, you would be only presented with these two columns here. Okay, these first two columns. And I'll explain what they mean. So in this example, what you've actually done is we're looking at people shopping at a grocery store, and we want to know what spending brackets people fall in and how many of them fall in each bracket. So let's look at this first bracket here. Okay, what it's saying is we're looking at people that spend between 0 to 400 Rand. That means they don't spend anything, or they spend just under 400 Rand, but maximum they spend is less than 400. So they would spend at most in the first bracket, the most they would spend is 399 Rand and 99 cents. Okay, that's what the less than sign means. Less than means you don't include 400. Okay, so that's the first bracket. The next bracket, the one below that, are people that spend 400 and up, but nothing more than 799. So the max they would spend in this bracket is 799 and 99 cents, and so on, going all the way down. Okay, so that's what the first column is telling you, what bracket people fall in terms of their spending. The next column is the frequency. It tells you how many people fall in that bracket. So in the first bracket, there's nobody that actually comes to the grocery store and spends less than 400 Rand. However, in the next spending bracket, we have 7 people that spend that amount. The thing is, we just know the number of them that spend that in that bracket, but we don't know the exact number. So let me just draw your attention on just the second row. What it's telling us, there are 7 people that spend between the amount 400 to 800 Rand. They could be, for all we know, the first person could spend 401 Rand. The next person could be spending 405, all the way to maybe the last person who spends at most 788. Right? It could be the case that the first person spends that, second, and then the last person, which is the 7th person, because you can see we have 7 people in this bracket. That person could spend 788. Now, if we had been presented with their exact numbers, then the data would be ungrouped. But we are not given that information. All we are told is that there's 7 people, but we know that they spend in that range. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's what we mean by grouped. Grouped is we don't know the raw data values. We only know the frequency for which bracket they fall in. All right, and that's what this table is all about. Okay, and if you add up the frequency, okay, if you add up the frequency column, you get a total of 30 people. So that's how many people we looked at in total. Okay, all right, so that's what the first 2 columns are. Now, given these first 2 columns, you'd be expected to work out what the average is. Okay, now for group data, you have to work them out a bit differently. But what we're going to do is for the average, we can make your life a lot easier by setting up your calculator to be able to do it for you. Now, what I want you to do is, okay, so some of you, okay, all of you just do this, okay, so press AC, let's reset. Okay, now I want you to press mode. Okay, then choose the stat option. So you press mode, then press stat. Option in your calculator should be option 2. All right, press that, and then you choose the option that says 1 minus bar. And in my calculator is option 1. So choose that option 1. Okay, now how many of you only have an X column? And you can just raise your hand in the chat. I just need to know this. How many of you only see an X column? Some of you would have frequency as well. For those that have frequency, great, you're kind of sorted. But some of you would only have the X column. So please give me a show of hands for those that only have an X column in their calculator. All right, great. Okay, so you can lower your hands now, everyone. I'm going to show you how to set up the frequency column. Okay, so lower your hands. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to set up this frequency column. All right, so press AC on your calculator. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to press, let me just clear the board so you can follow what I'm saying. Okay, you're going to press Shift, and then you're going to press Mode. So first press Shift, then press Mode. All right, now what I want you to look for is a stat option, but some of you won't see the stat option. You'll be presented with like 8 options here, 1, 2, etc., all the way to 8, and you won't see stat then. That's fine. What you do is use your cursor button. It's that big, it could be whatever color, but blue in my calculator. It's got all the arrows here: down arrow, right arrow, left and up. Scroll down, press down, and you'll see more options when you do that. And there you should see stat. Whatever that number is next to stat. If it is 3, that's next to stat, or whatever it is, press it. Okay, choose done. And then you would see an option that says frequency on or off. Do you want it on or off? We want it on because it means we want this column. So choose the option that says on. If it's number 1, press 1. Okay, and now we should be good to go. All right. Anyone didn't see that? Anyone got lost? I'm assuming. Okay, everyone's good. To answer your question, can you have 2 middle numbers? Yeah, that's to the question that was posed earlier. You can have an even amount of numbers. You take the middle number. Remember, for the middle number, you're not counting. You actually working at the position and calculating it. But I'll come back to your question at the end if it's still not certain. Let's go back to the whiteboard. Okay, now let's check that we got this X in this frequency column. So if you don't remember how to get back to this, all you need to do is press Shift, press the option 1, which is that. Oh wait, sorry, don't forget that. Let's cancel that. Let's press AC. Okay, AC. Just press Mode. Press Mode and choose the stat option. All right, then choose the 1 minus bar. 1 minus bar option. And now let me know who doesn't have the frequency column. Who doesn't have it? Just raise your hand if you still don't have it, if you don't have the frequency column. Okay, I don't see any hands, so that's a good sign. All right, very good. Okay, so I think we're all set up and all good to go. Now we just need to populate this table with numbers. All right, now the frequency value, it's pretty easy to store that. All right, so let's store it, which is already given in the table, okay, in the first 2 columns. Okay, so what I want you to do is move your cursor to the right, and you should have your cursor only on the frequency column. Make sure we're only going to capture the frequency. We're going to do this second. Okay, we'll leave the X for next. We're only going to capture the frequencies. Why? Because that's given to us in this column. Okay, you're given to us in the second column. So the first value you capture is 0, so press 0 and it equals 2. All right, and then press equals 2 and you'll see you to capture it. And the next value you're going to capture is 7. So that's the next row, 7. equals 2. And so on, all the way to the last number, which is 1. Don't capture 30. 30 is your total. Okay, so don't capture this. The last number you're going to capture is 1. So do that for me, all the way to 1, and it equals 2. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers captured. Okay, so please do that. So in your frequency column, you're going to have 7, you're going to have 0, 7, 14, 5, 3, and 1. That'll be the last number. Okay. And just raise your hands once you've captured the frequency column. So I just know everyone's finished that. Okay. Raise your hands once you're done. Okay, so just ensure you captured all the frequency values. Okay, if anyone's stuck, I'll come back to you. Just let me know, but you can all lower your hands now. So I just want to move on to capturing the X value. So everyone lower your hands. Now we're going to move on to the X column. All right, so you just move the cursor to the left, and now move it all the way up so that the cursor, this highlighted rectangular block, is now sitting here in the first row. On the first row, number 1 on the left in the margin. So your cursor should be sitting here. Now the thing is, what number do we capture here for X? Well, for group data, your X value, is just the midpoint of your first column. It's the middle value of this bracket. And how you get the middle value is you add up the upper number from the upper limit to the lower limit. So it's 400 plus 0, and you divide by 2. If you do that, you get 200. So that's your midpoint for the first row. So I've done it for you, but it's just important that you understand how to work it out. For the next row, it'll be the same method. You add up the upper limit, which is 800, plus the lower limit. You divide by 2, and that will give you 600. And that's how we got the next number, and so on and so on. So the numbers you're going to populate for your X column is going to be this column here. This is your X column. So populate that with these values. Okay, so do that. And just raise your hands once you've completed this. Okay, so remember here, the first number you would capture is 200. And the next number you capture is 600, etc., etc. All the way to the last number, which is 2,200. Okay, your last one you should capture here is
if I didn't, let me ask you a question. If I didn't have this midpoint column already sorted out for me, and I had to work it out myself while in the middle of this mode, will I need to use a separate calculator to get this, or is there a way I can do it while after working out the frequency?
Do it first. Yeah,
so I must first do it.
Yeah, do it first. I've done it this way so that you can kind of identify what the X is. But in general, you'd have to work it out first, and then go to this table in your calculator and just capture it.
All right, very clear. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, so just raise your hands once you capture all the numbers in X. So your X column should be complete, and your frequency column should be complete. All right, just raise your hands once you're done. Okay, cool. And just go back to done. Okay, now that you captured it, okay, your data is there and you're good to go. So I'm just going to erase this. And if you want the mean, if you want the average, right, it's the same process as what we did for ungroup data. Okay, so if you wanted to get the mean, if you want to get the X bar, that's the symbol for the mean, then what you're going to do is you just press AC on your calculator, right? Just start fresh. Then you're going to press shift. Okay, so nothing new here. Then you're going to press the button 1 because it has a stat thing above it, stat function. Shift 1. And then let's see if any of you remember the next step. You should be choosing bar variables because the X bar is variable. And then you should see the X bar. And once you get it, press equals to, and then write the number in the chat so I can see everyone's following and getting the same answer. So tell me what you get for the average. Write it in the chat. In the chat. Does everyone get the value? 1093.33. If you don't, just let me know, but that's what you should get for X bar, 1093.33. Okay, that's your average. Check the chat. Very good. Let's do that. Okay, that's how you get the mean, all right? Using your calculator. Okay. What you've actually done, what your calculator actually did is it used this formula here. Okay, it used this formula to actually get it. You don't need to worry too much about using it because your calculator does it for you. But all it does is it creates an FX column. What the FX is just multiplying your frequency column to your X column. So 0 times 200 is 0. The next one will be 7 times 600, which is 4,200, etc. Right? So that's your FX column. And then what your calculator is actually doing is it's taking this total here and it's dividing by this total here, the sum of the frequency, 30. You don't really need to, I guess, learn it off because the formula is given to you. But I'm just telling you so you understand what your calculator is actually doing in order to get the average for you. All right, so that's the mean. Now we're going to move on to the median. Now the median for group data is done using a formula. Now the formula that I have on the right, it will be presented to you. Okay, so you don't need to memorize it. It is given to you in your formula sheet for your exam and your assignment or whatever formal assessments that you would have. Okay, so don't worry about memorizing it. But what is important is that you understand how to use it. So if you look at the symbols in that equation, if you look at all the symbols for the median, the symbols don't really have words to it, right? So it's kind of difficult to kind of know what they mean. But that's what I'm going to do now with you, is to take you through what they mean. So we are going to work out the median. So I'm just going to draw a line here to kind of create some space because we're going to be working with the median now. The first step to working out your median is to determine what interval the median would be in. Okay, what interval? Now, let's go back to what the median is all about. If you recall from the beginning of the session, the median is the middle number. Okay. Now, how many numbers do we have in total? Well, that's the total of the frequency column. Here we have a total of 30 shoppers. That's how many people we have in total. So your N is 30. So if we want to work out the median, we would want to know where would the 15th person lie. So if we had to rank all the numbers, we had to rank them by lowest spend all the way to the highest spend with the highest person spending whatever there. The middle person would be at the 15th position, roughly. But I know what you're thinking. Some of you are thinking, wait, it shouldn't be 15 because we should be using that formula N plus 1 over 2, which isn't 15, because in this case, it would be 31 over 2, right? Which is not 15. And I understand that and I get that. But you just need to make a note that when you are working with group data, like in this example, position is determined using N over 2. But when you're working, I'm just going to put a note here, this is for grouped. Right? When you're working with ungrouped like we did earlier, that is the raw data, then it is n plus 1 over 2. Okay, and I wish I could tell you why that is the case. Unfortunately, that just is the way this module is structured. You could actually, in some courses, it is n plus 1 over 2 even for groups, but just keep in mind, for this one, we are working with n over 2. All right, so don't use n plus 1. Okay, keep that in mind. You would get marked wrong for that. So use n over 2 for grouped. For ungrouped, use n plus 1 over 2. So if you're using n over 2, all right, you would get 15 because 30 over 2 is 15. So it's the 15th person. Okay. Okay, so we know it's the 15th person, all right? But because we don't have the raw data values, we can't really determine which is the middle person. But what we can do is we can work out which interval that 15th person would be in. Okay, let's think of it logically. If you look at the first bracket, you have nobody here, okay? Nobody in that first bracket. When you get to the second bracket, then you have 7 people. So in total, when you get to the second bracket, in total you have 7 people, right? When you get to the second bracket. When you get to the third bracket, in total you have 0 plus 7 plus 14. You would have covered 21 people going from here to here. If you think about it, you've already looked at 21 people. How did I get 21? Well, it's 0 plus 7 plus 14. I've added up all the frequencies. So by here, I've got 21 people. All right. Now, can all of you gather that there's no way the 15th person can be in the second bracket? Why? Because when you get to the second bracket, in total, you only have 7 people. So your cumulative frequency, and I'm going to write capital F here, for cumulative frequency. Cumulative frequency just means as I go down, I just keep adding up the frequency numbers. Just keep adding them up. And that's what I'm doing here. 0, 7, you get 7. 7 plus 14 is 21. So there's no way the 15th person can be here because you only have a total of 7 people. There's still too few. But when you get to the third bracket, you've got to 21 people. So yes, that 15th person can be there because you've covered more than 15 when you get to the third bracket. So this interval here, the third one, that is your median interval. It's very important you understand that. If anyone's not clear on how I explain that or how you get the median interval, please let me know in the chat. Because if you don't get this right, everything goes wrong. It's very important that you get the right interval. So where I got the green arrow, this is the interval, that's your median interval. And how I got that is because I'm looking for the 15th person. So I got to track after how many rows would I have exceeded 15 people. And that only happens when I get to the third interval, that is this one here. So that 15th person has to be here in this interval. Let me check the chat. I think everyone's good, but just let me know otherwise. All right, so I'm going to leave the green arrow there because all the values that you need for this formula here comes from that green interval. Okay, so that OME that you see, okay, so let me just clear this part here. That OME that you see, what that just means is that is the lower limit of that interval. So your OME is the lower limit of that interval. And what is the lower limit of that interval? If you look at just this median interval, the lower limit is 800. So that's what OME is. It's 800 in this example. See, so if you got the wrong interval, then this value here would go wrong. And then everything else is going to get, you're going to have it, it's going to be incorrect. Okay, so please make sure you get the right interval, and you understand how to get it. So that's your OME, the first value in the formula. The next value that you see there is the C in that formula. C is just the class width. Now you can look at any of these intervals, any row, the width would always be the same. Because if you look at it, the first interval, the width is 400. How do you get the width? You just subtract the upper limit from the lower limit. So in other words, you can take any interval. I'll just take the same interval we're working with, 1,200 minus the lower limit, which is 800, and you are left with 400. That's your width, class width. Right, that's your C. N is just the sum of the frequency. It's your total frequency. You add up all your frequencies. So it's the sum of the frequencies, which is 30. All right, so we've got OME, we've got C, we've got N. The next symbol is the symbol here. It's F, bracket, less than, close bracket. This whole thing is one symbol, right? This here. All this is, it's the cumulative frequency of everything before that interval. So it's the cumulative frequency before the median interval. So what I mean is, if you look at all the frequencies before the median interval, which is just 0 and 7, add them up. So it's 0 plus 7. So in this example, it's 7. That's your lower limit. And the last value that you need in this formula is FME, the denominator. That is simply just the frequency of your median interval. That's the frequency of the median interval. And if you look at the table, there's your median interval where the green arrow is. The frequency of that interval is 14. So that is 14. Now you have all the values, sorry, it's not 4, it's 14. You have all the values to plug into that formula. And if you plug all these values into this formula here, your median, the value for your median would be, I'll write it out for you, it's 1028.57. 1028.57. Okay, so that's how you work out the median. I know it's a lot of work to use the formula, but you do get a generous amount of marks if you get it right. So something like this could easily carry 5 to 6 marks. All right, so that's why it's important that you understand how to do it. Okay, you must understand how to use that formula. Okay, so now we've done the median. All right, so take this one off. Okay, lastly, we are going to do the mode. And the mode also uses a formula. But if you understand how to do the median, the mode is very similar. Okay, it's not any more complex than that. So let me show you how to do it with this example. Okay, so just like the median, we need to determine what the modal interval is. Now, from the earlier part of the session, I told you that the mode is the most frequent number, right? But the thing is, we are not given the raw data, but we can determine which interval has the most amount of people in this example, right? Or most amount of data points. And if you look at the frequency column, the interval that has the most amount of data points happens to be the same interval as the median interval because this has the highest frequency. So that's your modal interval where you have the highest frequency. And in this example, it's where the frequency is 14, which is the highest. So it just so happens coincidentally that the modal interval is the same as the median interval. It isn't always guaranteed, but in this example it is. So as soon as we know that, I'm going to put an arrow here, like the green arrow. So I don't need to create a new one because it just happens to be the same interval. That's the modal interval. Okay, so that's a modal interval. And then in the same way, what the symbols are for this formula, it's similar to what it is for the median interval. That OMO is just the lower limit of that interval. It's the lower limit. So in our example, it's 800. The lower limit is 800. All right, that's what your OMO is. C is the same, it doesn't change. It's your class width, what we worked at earlier, which is 400. Okay, now you have this symbol here, FM. FM is just the frequency of your modal interval. And if you look at the frequency for this interval, it's just 14. So your FM is 14. Right, now your FM minus 1, what this minus 1 is actually just telling you it's the frequency of the interval before the modal interval. So it's a frequency, let me just write it, Z, the frequency before the modal interval. If you look at it, here's your modal interval. The frequency before that is 7. So that's what your FM minus 1 is, 7. So let me just quiz you here, right? I know it's almost the end of the session, so this should be a very, very simple question. If FM minus 1 is the frequency before the modal interval, what do you think FM plus 1 is? And you can just write the number out. What do you think the value for FM plus 1 is? Remember, if FM minus 1 is the frequency before the modal interval, what do you think FM plus 1 would be? And write the number that you think FM plus 1 would be. Let me check the chat. Very good. Excellent. That's right. It's the frequency after the modal interval, which is 5. That's right. Very good. That's it. So now you have everything you need to plug into this formula. All right. And if you plug the values into that formula, you'll get a value for your mode as being, I'll tell you now, the value for your mode is 975. Okay, that's your mode. Okay, so now this is some of what we just covered today. Today you covered three central measures. You covered three central measures. Those three measures are the median, the mean, and the mode. And you've done it for both group data and for ungrouped data. Okay, so in next week's session, we're going to cover dispersion measures. All right. So I hope today's content made sense and you understood it. Maybe I'll just leave the floor open for any questions. If everyone else is happy with what's covered, you can happily drop off. But if any questions, please shoot. That's what I'm here for.
Hi, Dara.
Yes. Hey, Thomas.
Yeah, it seems we're gonna have a good time with this module.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's something else. I was not expecting something like this, but I love it, and I'm going to put some more of my time into this because I see it actually needs some time. Otherwise, how is the pass rate? How has it been in the past with the other
So I can't, yeah, good question. That's a very good question. So I got to say this year, the mark scheme has been a bit, what's the lack of a better word? I can't think of a better word other than just being stingy and selfish. But it hasn't been as generous as it's been in the past year, like last year and the year before. So in other words, if a question before gave you 7 marks, I've found that the mark scheme has now dropped to 5. Unfortunately, that just is how it is, which, obviously makes it a bit trickier. So that's why this year in terms of that, that's what's made it a bit more difficult. But the content is the same. I mean, we've had decent pass rates. I can't compare it to other modules, but if I could, yeah, I don't have a number offhand, sorry to give you, but I don't. My advice is, don't focus or fixate yourself on that. I can just tell you that all the students that have worked consistently, watched the recordings, or even attended the synchronous sessions, and I understand not everyone can attend it, but you must catch the recordings. If you watch the recordings and you walk through the material that are covered in the content, a lot of them did, they passed. So I can give you that kind of comfort. That's the correlation that I've picked up. Those that work consistently, but those that kind of left it for last minute, they do struggle. So yeah, that's what I can tell you. If that helps.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, that's been my advice in the last session and even now. Work consistently through it. So even if you can start your assignments now, please do that. You can actually do your first 2 ISTARs if you're comfortable with learning in 1 and 2. Give it a shot. Not only does it count towards your class assessment mark, but it's actually a nice exercise to help your revision. And if you don't understand any of the questions, then you let me know, because that's what I'm here to help you with. But yeah, any problems, anything you're not certain about, especially regarding the content of the course, please let me know. But I hope you enjoyed the course, and I'm hoping that these sessions help in your understanding of the content. Okay, that's it for me. I think I've talked enough. But if there aren't any more questions, then please have a wonderful evening, everyone, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.